Hey guys, so this is Trevor again. This will be the Build Guild Part 2 video. As you guys probably know, since if you watched the first video, I was intended to only have one video, but I really underestimated the amount of material that I had, so I had to make a part one and a part two so that each part doesn't go too long, right? I don't want to bore you guys and in a very long video. So anyways, on this part specifically, I'm gonna show you all the builds that I put together after I play both the private and the open beta, and then after I check the internet for all the information that was out there in regards of weapon talents, in regard of gear perks, and in regards of what kind of stats and what are the limitations on those stats. I'm talking about the offense, defense, and utility stats that you need uh, to have all those talents, all those weapon talents, and all those gear perks unlocked. So without further ado, let's get right into it, right? And this is right here the build that I'm looking for the most. Is what I call is the first video, build on this video. Remember, there will be other four more. And, and the reason why I like this SMG, I call what I call the skill SMG striker, is that this build is it really packs a punch when it comes to weapon damage, right? But it also has because we want to unlock those very strong weapon talents, and those strong buff to weapon damage in the gears, what we call the gear perks. We have to put a lot of our stats into utility, so that will force us to to be very offensive, because we're gonna be having a lot of crit damage, right? And we're gonna try to have crit chance. But since the weapon talents, specifically the gear perks, force us to put so many of our perks of our gear into utilities, we also gonna have skill power. So that's what makes this build so interesting, right? Let's get right into it. So the specialization that I'm recommending for this is demolitionist, and the reason I'm recommending the demolitionist is because I don't know if you remember, but the specialization give you at the end when you specialize into one of the three categories. There will be more down the road, but those will be the ones that game release. You can have a set of perks, and among those perks, there is one that is related to what weapon you can use that gives you extra damage. In the case of demolitionist, the demolitionists give you 50% increased damage to both the SMG and the LMG. And since this build relies on SMG, I figured that it's best if you use the demolitionist character to make this build, right? In the skills, and you will see why, I've chosen the striker drone and the pulse. Now, bear in mind that I chose the pulse for a particular reason that you will see. Don't forget that. And then in terms of the gear, I've chosen the Sokolov Concern because that's the gear that gives you SMG damage, right? One piece, and the two piece give you crit damage. The third piece gives you Seeker mine damage. And again, I'm not gonna be using Seeker, so I figure that I will put only two pieces of Sokolov, right? And then use one piece of Gila to give me extra buff on armor, right? And then the Wyvern Wear that give you a straight crit damage and crit chance plus drone skill power. So since I was forced to get, or I wanted to get the 10% crit chance in the bottom, I figured that this other skill that I was gonna be using, one of them was gonna be the drone. The other one I'll explain later why I chose the pulse, right? This is for PvP, so I would recommend it in a group, but it could be also very well played solo. I would recommend dual SMGs just to maximize the 25 SMG damage that you get from the specialization and the 10% that you get from the build itself. And some other damage that you will see here that is incredible, right? So use both SMGs. If you feel confident and you can handle having a reload time, and just hit the most with only one SMG and have any other weapon time, feel free to do it. But to maximize this build, I would definitely recommend using dual SMGs. Now on the primary weapon, I would choose as the characteristic talent. I would choose the extra that give you 20% more ammo. I would choose the grease because that means that when the primary is holster and you're swapping from the secondary to the primary, you get 10% swap speed. And then I would choose one of these three. The three are great. Either the Vindictive, the Optimist, or the Strain. Now the Vindictive give you, when you kill an enemy under status effects, it gives the whole squad 20% critical chance. I think for what it is, either 15 or 25 seconds. I'm not sure. I think it's along those two values. You can go back and check, but I'm pretty sure it's during that amount of time. The Optimist, it gives you more damage as the magazine starts to get empty, right? So that's how the Optimist helps you to buff your damage. And then the Strain, which I think will be the more interesting one by all means for this build, especially if you're solo, is that as your armor starts to deplete in 10%, you gain 200% critical damage. So in other words, you only gain 10% crit damage for every 5% of armor that depleted. So once your armor breaks, at that point you are able to have up to 200% crit damage. That's awesome. So for the secondary weapon, I would recommend also extra. I would recommend double duty, and double duty was something that I will be using in all the builds, just because, as I mentioned in the first video, it's a watered down version, but nonetheless a great talent for a weapon, of not having to reload your secondary weapon at all. So the way it works is that you have double duty as the holster talent on your secondary. That means that once you reload your primary, your secondary gets automatically reloaded. That's great to have. And then the same three talents as the active talents for the secondary as well. On the sidearm, as always, I would recommend both the transmission and the stop drop roll, just because the transmission gives you 1 in every minute chance to transfer the shock that is applied to you to any enemy around you. And then the stop drop and roll is that when you get a status effect and you roll, you can get rid of the status effect. The way it works is that you're engaging in PvP or PvP or PvE, whatever, and you get hit with a status effect, quickly swap to your pistol or your sidearm, do a roll, get rid of the status effect, and then go back to either your primary or your secondary. The good thing about this build is that all of those weapon talents that you see here, they only require 4 less offense stats, right? Let's get into the gear perks. So in the gear perks, again, we can have up to 8, right? I'm seeing 9 here, and you will see why. But the most important thing is that I would recommend definitely having, and that's what I was gonna show you earlier. But let's do it like this first. I would recommend having Berserk, because you get 10% weapon damage for every 10% of armor that you lost. So you imagine combining Berserk with Strain? That would be such a tough, such a strong combination, right? Because you gain crit damage as your armor depletes with a Strain, and then you gain straight weapon damage as your armor depletes on the gear, and applies only for shotgun, assault rifles, or SMG, right? So that these two things combined with the 25% SMG damage, that's what I'm saying, that this build really packs a punch, because you can get so much straight output in terms of damage, right? Then on the ropes, again, another 25% weapon damage when you don't have skills. And then Unbreakable give you the 25% armor when you lose your armor, you get 25% extra armor. And if you use a mech kit, then it doesn't get taken from your inventory. Then the other 3 or 4 skills is really the ones that I'm seeing that help you the most. Like a breaking on armor give you another 25 crit damage. And Spotter is one that I specifically chose because I thought, okay, how can I make use to even increase further my weapon damage, right? So I had I had 25 straight weapon damage, plus 100% weapon damage here when I lose my armor, plus 200% crit damage, right? So much damage. I can, at this point, I'm having over 125 damage, but I can have another yet 10% more weapon damage if I'm using pulse, right? So that's why I chose pulse as my skill here, right? And then terminate will give you skill damage, a 35% skill damage for 15 seconds, and then a skill. This really, I will say, because this is so circumstantial, right? This is so circumstantial, and then it can really be in conflict with this, because this weapon talents require 4 or less offense, and this actually requires more than 4. So you could have some conflict putting that together. That's why I say, okay, you know what? Let's just get rid of this and then get skill instead. And the reason I'm doing that is because, in particular on the ropes, the 25% weapon damage that I mentioned earlier, it really requires more than 7 utilities. So I say, okay, if I'm using more than 7 utilities, why I might as well just use, the gear perk called skill that requires more than 5. So I will be unlocking that, and then I got almost, it's a 35% to reset all my skills. That means that my pulse that I could have in cooldown, I could have it on pretty often, right? That's awesome to have. So that will give me 6 talents right here, and then the plus the pros, the 2 talents that I think make more sense is the harden that give you 10% armor, and then capacitive, right, that give me 10% skill duration and gain just to maximize the pulse, right? So as you see here, this build is all about straight output, right? Straight damage output, and then I'm making sure that I'm maximizing also my skill power, because I'm forced to use more than 7 utility stats in my gear. So I not only have a strong power output, I also have a strong skill power, and that's why I call it skill SMG Striker, and it's the one that I'm looking forward the most, to be honest with you guys. Let's go. Again, that's just me showing that what I mentioned earlier. There is another variation here, I should say. If you really want to make use of the skill power as I mentioned, you can get rid of the 5% armor, and then you could really have a Provident defense piece that gives you 10% skill power. Just thinking that you have so much utilities that maybe you just want to maximize your skill power, and get your health a little bit more squishy. So just as a reminder, this build needs 4 offense stats and 7 utility as the bare minimum. The PvP build number 2 that I mentioned, you guys, I'm bringing you, is what I call the utility sniper. Now, the utility sniper is something that I'm very fond of, because I like to sniper a lot. I mean, to to snipe people and to snipe. When I do PvE, I found on the betas that they were very strong. But this one is for PvP though. Now, bear with me. I'm choosing the sharpshooter just because I think that in this particular case, the sharpshooter, this is a mistake here, guys. I apologize for this. Let me. It's not really the assault rifle. It's the straight rifle. So the sharpshooter gives you 15% increase of sidearm. 50% increased damage on the rifle. The survival is the one that gives you 15% increased damage on both the shotgun and the assault rifle. So that's why I'm choosing my rifle as my secondary here. That's why I'm choosing the sharpshooter, because I'll be using or relying on my rifle as my secondary here. You didn't really need to do this. I just thought that since I was using sniper, I was gonna be using the sharpshooter, because the sharpshooter gives you so much headshot damage, right? And then since I first used the sharpshooter, then I thought, okay, what's the weapon that the sharpshooter gives you the offense? And that's the rifle. And that's why I think the M44 is the primary rifle on a sharpshooter PvP sniper build makes sense. I'm calling still the utility because, as before, I'm gonna be unlocking many of the talents related to increase weapon damage, and then for that talent in particular, which is on the rope down here, I need the 7 utilities. So that's why I call it the utility sniper, because I'll be again having a lot of utilities dedicated to skill power. Now this is a sniper that you're gonna be sitting from behind, right? Unlikely from cover. So for the primary weapon, you definitely want rifleman. That's the one that when you land a headshot, you get 10% weapon damage for 5 seconds. You can stack it up to 5 times, and you keep hitting headshots. You keep refreshing the time. So this is great for those of you guys who like to land headshots on your enemies, especially on probably obviously on PvP. Now for your secondary, which would be a rifle, I would recommend again the same things that I mentioned earlier. Of course, for the primary, the rifleman, you can get extra just to have another extra bullet. I think the M44 gives you 5 bullets, so you have 6 with a 20% increase ammo on the extra, and then the grease, which is the one that allows you to swap back to the rifle once you are using the rifle. The one that allows you to swap back to the marksman rifle. Excuse me. For the secondary, you also, as before, you want the double duty always on your secondary. The Allegro makes sense because it's a rifle, right? So you want to spam those shots. And I see the rifle more like you're engaging PvP from a distance, and people tend to rush you. Then you swap to your rifle because they are, in the medium range, and you want to, spam shots very fast. That's why I think Allegro makes more sense for your rifle. And then, this we already mentioned was the deal is with the sidearms and why I'm choosing those talents. Now on the gear perks is very close to what I had before. The only difference here is that I'm adding entrench. So entrench is, and this one I'm saying this is more like a rely on the back kind of build for PvP, because imagine you're sitting on the back, and for every headshot that you land, you get 5% of your armor back. So just sit on the back, don't rush people, try to pick them from afar. This is at the end a cover shooter game. Is very much closer to what they intended to do with the Division 1. So for this build, just relax, you stay in the back, you snipe for those heads, and those heads will give you the kills and will also repair your armor, right? If you get rushed, you can have a chance to fight back with the rifle because you get 10% of the rifle damage with the overload piece that you're using, plus another 15 from the actual specialization, so that would be 25% rifle damage increase, right? So make use of that if you're rushed, but all means possible, try to stay in the back, right? And then for the other 3, they're obviously hardened to give you more armor, 10%, and then 2 of the characteristics. 2 of the other blue gear perks are really related to the blue gear perks that I was the normal gear perks that I was mentioned earlier. So so for this build in particular, I find, let me get back here so I can get rid of the pencil. I still have the pencil. All right. So I'm back to the arrow, guys. Okay, guys. As I was mentioned earlier, so one choice, what you could do if you feel like you are gonna definitely fighting from the distance, you're gonna be engaging the short or medium distance, and you don't want to benefit from the 10% rifle damage, and you feel like you need some other support for you, you could then go and choose what I probably think is best. Is probably the 5% skill power that the One Piece Ops Summit gives you. But you know, it's up to you whether you want to stay with the overload and get the 10% rifle damage combined with the 50% that you get from the specialization, or you just want to get rid of that and get more skill power. Because again, as before, you're gonna be using here on the ropes will give you straight 25% weapon damage, and you need 7 utility stats for that, right? The other thing is that for the secondary for the rifle, I'm really putting here strain that give you the crit damage as you armor starts getting depleted, but you really can use other talents. The Optimist, right? The one that gives you more damage or your magazine lowers. The Vindictive here, it might not be that good because you're not going to be engaging very close distance from the squad anyway. You're going to be from afar. So Vindictive is not really maybe a good choice in this build, right? So I think the last thing to mention is that these builds need either 4 or 5, depending on what talents you finally choose. Offense stats, it needs less than 4 defense, right, and at least 7 utilities. So you're kind of tight here. You probably don't want to have anything on defense, and all what you'll be specking on would be in offense 4 or 5, and again 7 utilities. The other build that I'm really looking forward to is the one that I call the Nate Madman. And the reason I call it like that is because you can see it here on the screen, and you will see it as I go through. But it's basically your specialization, or you're gonna be specializing in throwing on nades, right? So for that matter, I think the best specialization route that you can take for this build is the one from the Demolitionist. This case because the Demolitionist give you 25% explosive damage. So start with that, and then you know you kind of work forward, right? Since the Demolitionist also gives you both SMG and LMG damage, I figure okay, I did already SMG build. Let me have fun with the LMGs, and that's why I'm using dual LMGs on this build. For the skills, I'm using the Seeker, which specifically the mods that give you the explosive or the airboats, because both of them deal explosive damage. And then the turret, I'm choosing the artillery, which is the one related specifically to the Demolitionist, and also give you explosive damage, right? So all of the skills that I'm using somehow relate to the explosive damage. On the brand sets that I'm using the Petrov, obviously, because that gives you turret skill power. The one piece gives you LMG damage, so again you have 25% LMG damage, and then the third piece gives you cooldown reduction. Okay, so for the other 3 pieces, I'm choosing only one piece of Genolite because the 2 piece give you, the shotgun damage. You don't want that, so 1 piece only for getting the 10% explosive damage, and then 1 piece probably the defense, 10% skill power, and then 1 piece of ultimate, 10% cooldown reduction. Again, here I'm gonna be using on the ropes as I mentioned earlier. So I'm gonna be having to spec more than 7 points into utility stat. So that's why I'm choosing here the LMG damage for my weapon damage buff, but then pretty much the rest is all around the explosive damage, because again this build is about throwing nades, right? And then straight into skill power or ski haze, stuff like that. So let's get right into the primary and secondary weapon talents, and they're pretty much the same that I was using right before, either Vindictive, Optimist, or Strain as the active, Grease for the primary as a holster, Double Duty as a secondary as a holster, and then Extra in both cases for the LMGs. Now, if the LMG has a high magazine, which I don't know if it will be the case, but if they have a big enough magazine, I'll probably still use Extra. If you feel like you can get down someone and you don't need that much ammo in the magazine, by all means use Allegro instead, which gives you more rate of fire. Okay. Now, in the gear perks, I would recommend having On the Ropes, because when your skills are on cooldown, you're gonna have 25% more damage on your weapon. I will also recommend Skill, because when you kill people with your skills, you get a 35% of reset the cooldowns, right? And then I will also use Terminate, because that one, when you break someone, armors give you 35% skill damage. And then again, all of these three perks that I mentioned, they all require you to spec into utility somehow. So that's why I don't know if you follow what I'm saying, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to play my build so that whatever points I spec into whatever area, then I make the most out of it, right? I am specking a lot into skill power, into utility points, then I will spec some of my gear into skill power, right? Without forgetting what my main point of the build is, which in this case is throwing nades. And speaking of nades, think since I'm throwing nades, I'm gonna be looking all over for explosive damage. Uh, here, here, and then with the last three talents, right? So the Mad Bomber, as you guys might remember, is the one that gives you more radius for your grenade, and the grenades that actually kill people are refunded to you. To order another weapon, gear perk allows you to cook the nade. So I don't know if you guys see this, but these two perks in combination, they are deadly. So imagine you have a bunch of explosive damage, as you can see here. You cook the nade, so explode earlier, right? Explodes earlier than typically does, and then your nade radius is increased, and you get the nade back. This is like a this is like nuts, right? You can get kills with the nade. You get the nade back, but not only that, your explosive damage is so big, the radius of the nade is so big that this is truly a nade man build, right? And then the last build is if you want that extra kick and someone throws the drone at you, right? Or they throw a turret at you. And I know that the hit points of those guys are really small. To hit it and actually destroy it. But if you are able to do that, then you get another 50% explosive damage, right? So I don't know if you see where I'm going, but then I was mentioned that makes the 6 active talents, the 6 active perks of the gear. The 2 normal perks that I'm using are Surge to actually get your skills faster. That gives you 10% skill haste. But then I'm also choosing Destructive that gives you another 20% explosive damage. So overall, as you guys can see this, overall with this, to get this build together, I only need to have less than 4 offense, right, to unlock these weapon talents here, and then less than 4 defense and at least 7 utilities, which is something that you can do pretty easily. But these 2 talents are the ones that make this build so powerful and probably very fun to play. And check this out. Do you guys see that? Well, that right there, guys, is up to 105% explosive damage, right? It's twice twice the amount of damage that you will do with an explosive. Combined with these 2 talents, this build is really fun. So I'm cutting right here. I'm in 28 minutes, around 28 minutes. So I'm gonna close it right now. As always, please like, dislike, comment, do whatever you think is best. I'm gonna follow with the 3rd and final installment of this, what is, I guess, now a series, right, of build crafting for the Division 2. And see you guys soon.